Welcome to a new episode of Art Matters. I'm Wayne Quackenbush, the host, and I'm also the president of the Portsmouth Arts Guild, a local gallery that shows artists, and I have a space in Newport, Rhode Island where I share local artists as well. Today we have our first tattoo artist on the show because we believe in supporting all the arts, and I'd like to introduce Alley Cat Sunshine. I've known Alley for a number of years. She showed her work in my store. Before she was a tattoo artist, she was a painter. And do you want to talk a little bit about how you got involved with art and your journey in education?
Absolutely. So I started doing art as usual as a child, and then in high school I got more involved with the art classes there and ceramics, and my teachers were definitely very supportive of me, so I decided I wanted to pursue that. And I ended up going to Massachusetts College of Art and Design in Boston in 2006 in the fall. I graduated in 2010 with a degree in sculpture, which was fun and interesting, but I definitely dabbled in all of the arts at Mass Art. And I started basically just doing all kinds of different mediums. I first painted my car with car paint, lime green and purple octopus tentacles down the front. That was probably my biggest project from art school that I still have. It's kind of...
One of the first things I remember you showing me was a metal coffin that you just told me you had casted from life a tarantula and made a brass fastener to open the coffin. You had the coffin in the window and it opened up.
Yep.
And so
that was a fun project. Yeah, I spent most of my time in the metal shop at Mass Art, in the dungeon we like to call it. Mm-hmm. Pretty dark and dingy down there. Lots of wax casting from life, which was the tarantula. It was pretty cool. Mm-hmm.
And you were introduced to me by one of the current Guild Board members, Casey Wyvis, who also went to Mass Arts.
Yep.
Now, somewhere along the way, between now and then, you did an apprenticeship with a tattoo artist. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I decided I was always interested in tattoos, so I wanted to pursue that, and I found somebody who would take me on, and her name is Christina McLeod. Great tattoo artist local to the island, and she taught me everything she knew, and within a few years' time I was able to get my Rhode Island license and start pursuing tattoos.
And you were stressing how, though a lot of people find the idea of being a tattoo artist kind of romantic and financially rewarding, is a kind of a struggling process. You basically had to pay to learn how to do what you do, and I don't know if you could tell us about how hard it is to grow into that and to maintain that as a business.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's pretty difficult to find the right person that you trust, that you want to learn from, and they want to trust you to teach this sacred art of body modification, pretty much, has a very long history. So it just takes some time, and it's not for everybody. There's a lot of things that are involved in it that people don't really get to see unless you are sort of accepted into the world of tattoos.
It's almost like being part of a secret society.
Absolutely is. Totally, yep.
You want to start showing some of your artwork and talking about it?
Absolutely. So some of my tattoo kind of flash work is definitely inspired from like the 50s and...
Now bring that up and put it perpendicular so that Michael can see it.
So it's sort of pin-up-y, old school traditional kind of stuff.
Now that one would have been the welcoming pineapple of Rhode Island.
Absolutely.
But the style, and this one too, the pin-up and the watermelon, you could say that you, maybe from the 1930s to the present, this almost would work as something that somebody who went into the Navy came back with, and they kind of had a night on the town and decided to get that tattoo. And it's like, how did I get that?
Absolutely. That's totally my inspiration for these guys.
And we got a little bit of the motorsports, hot rod, and of course the whole death scenario, and the
This
bike.
one's called the Breaker of Chains.
Okay, I didn't know that they had names.
Well, some of them do. This is like a little, I ride motorcycles myself, so it's a little bit of, woman empowerment, and then the Breaker of Change is inspired by the Game of Thrones.
Okay.
And sort of being a woman and breaking those chains and being a badass.
Instead of a glass ceiling, we have a metal chain that literally snaps.
This one is sort of inspired by Beetlejuice and tattoos morphed into one.
Okay, talk to me about the Beetlejuice.
So the Beetlejuice is
Now
just...
hold it up so
yep.
vertical.
So the Beetlejuice is sort of just like the black and white kind of design of the snake.
Oh,
and,
okay,
and the snake, is
Yep.
kind of the imagery there, and then the peony is
And
a sort of a traditional.
And she kind of, and that almost looks a little bit like Audrey from Little Shop of Horrors.
That as well.
Right.
Yep.
So
Totally.
Yep, you got the male and the female happening.
This one is what we call a girl head or a lady head.
Okay.
Sort of very traditional kind of style as well.
Yes. Now, if you wanted to adapt that into something resembling a real person, you could do that. We were
Absolutely,
talking
yeah.
briefly
You can take
earlier
features.
about how you will talk to a client and get their input. Sometimes they'll come at you with a sketch. I remember one person I know got a broken light bulb as a tattoo, and that was very symbolic to them. I mean, I know that your renderings are meaningful. That's how I would like to describe it, because you definitely work with the people and get what they want to express themselves, and I just wanted to let that out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we do. Yep, we call that sort of like custom kind of work, working with the clients to create something original that nobody else has, but yet that's going to look timeless and last on their body as a tattoo image.
Right, because a tattoo is forever until you want to modify it.
Or you pass away.
Right, indeed.
All right, so I have a few other pieces that are sort of similar ideas and styles, but they're kind of a little bit more renegade. They're painted on old pieces of wood from old dinghies
Okay.
that have been destroyed, and so they're just going to get thrown out, and I kind of reclaim them.
You're upcycling the
Yep.
old wood, and it's got a kind of a driftwoody feel.
Totally.
Now, you also are very influenced by the nautical. I know that you have a lot of mermaids in your portfolio. I know you spend a lot of time on a boat, so you're on the land and the sea.
Yep.
And again, the mermaid, symbol of life, and then the skull, symbol of death, and it kind of covers the whole of human existence in one image.
Absolutely, yeah. In the summer, I live on a sailboat, so right in the East Bay. So I just like kind of doing some salty style stuff.
And again, that looks like it might, you can put that back up
Yep.
for a second. That looks like it could have been Welcome to Newport Island, or as I like to call it, Skull Island. And
Yep, I do a lot of skull stuff, totally.
But this could have been a postcard from the 1950s and 1960s, kind of promoting health and vacations and salt air and sunshine and all of that good stuff.
Totally.
Excellent.
And then I have a few paintings from actually when I was in art school. These are pretty old, but they're sort of like some inspirational pieces.
Yeah, we were going to talk about some artists that you might have been influenced by, and I see you have a little experience with not only Rat Fink, but Big Daddy Roth, who was
Absolutely.
known as an artist that worked with hot rods and monsters that drive hot rods. Do you know about Rat Fink?
Yep. So Rat Fink is probably one of my biggest inspirations. Like I said, I'm really into motorcycles and car culture and custom culture and lowbrow culture. Sort of what attracted me to tattoo art in the first place, and that's sort of where I started at a very young age, riding motorcycles and augmenting cars to look and feel the way that I feel like is unique and different and interesting, more interesting than your typical gray car that you see on the side of the road.
Right. Now we were talking on the way up about how all cars are curvy and they're very nondescript, but the cars that you're talking about are chrome and candy apple red and lime green and flake and all of that good stuff, all those colors. But I don't quite get how you might have been exposed to Big Daddy Roth.
Like I said, my dad is a machine shop owner, and
Okay.
so he kind of got me really into cars at a very young age and bought me my first car when I was 15. I didn't even have a license, and wanted me to paint the car because he thought the paint was bad. So I decided I wanted to, I saw somehow, some way, at a very young age, I discovered Big Daddy, and his cars just blew me away. I mean, he's the reason why chopper culture and custom paint wasn't even around, but really before him.
Yeah.
So I kind of just was. I mean, he is a huge inspiration.
It's kind of a post-war phenomenon, but where, well, at least the motorcycle culture and hot rod culture. Guys came back from the war. They had all of this energy, and they wanted to just experience that adrenaline rush of the speed
Totally.
on the road. And Big Daddy Roth kind of commodified that and turned it into, I would call it a mass culture experience.
It was it started pretty lowbrow, and then I think it got pretty intensely widespread. I mean, you could buy his models in stores.
Yep,
and
that's from when I was a child.
Totally.
You could get those, they were called weirdos, and there were these monsters with the big heads. They always had the bulging eyes, they had the teeth, giant gnarly hands,
Yep.
and just
They were so
go
cool.
to town.
Yeah, I have a few of those in my collection.
Oh, you
Yeah.
do? Very nice. Yeah, so you're a maven of the culture, the 50s culture, and
Absolutely,
you
yeah.
have a little bit of a hoarding collection there.
A little bit, small bit.
And I see one more
And then I
there.
have one more, and this is sort of still in the same realm.
Okay, so we got the Pompadour, that style of type that reminds me of Robert Armstrong, who was a West Coast artist who did type design like that. And then, of course, the prizes, the ring pop, the candy ring pop, and
Some donuts and some other treats.
right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we got some switchblades there in the bottom.
Yep,
They're
switchblades and
candy
pompadours.
lollipop switchblades.
The mustache goes even further back. And the glitter on top.
Yep.
Did you use the medium to seal that all off?
I did,
Yes,
yep.
indeed.
It's like an epoxy.
Yeah, so that brings the light in and brings it out. And I think with that, we're going to have to wrap things up.
Absolutely.
I really thank you for coming by, and thank you for hanging out. And
Thank you, Wayne.
we'll be talking soon.
Awesome.
We're back at Art Matters, talking to another artist, my friend Gianni Lovera, who I've known for a number of years. And I think we met at one of the drawing marathons that I used to hold in various places in Rhode Island. You showed up one day and almost like a race, you walked into the space and sat down and watched us draw and drew and that was my first impression. Do you remember it that way?
I don't, but I like your version better. I had actually come by the store one time, a long time before that, when I was in town, Newport, visiting, because my sister went to school here at Salve. And then it was probably over a year later, I was in town for an extended period, and I happened to go by, and there was some sort of drawing event.
Yeah, we advertised it on Facebook. I think that's how we connected
Yeah,
too.
probably.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I met a couple of the other usuals around there and had some interesting conversations.
Right.
And
Yeah, with Kurt Von Erickson and some
yeah,
of our
and that turned into an
other
all-day
artists. Yep, we used
art
to
marathon.
do 12 hours at a time back when I was younger and had the stamina. So I know you're originally from Springfield, Mass, and you relocated to the island. Do you want to talk a little bit about what your interest in art was and how you got started?
I mean, I've been into art my whole life. When I was younger, I used to consume anything that had to do with art, from comics to documentaries. And I just drew everything I could find, comics growing up. Oddly enough, I went to Catholic school growing up, and there was a lot of, Renaissance-style artwork, and I was very into that at a young age for some reason. If that's like a past life thing or something, but
Oh, you mean like the Michelangelo or
all of the just Renaissance.
yeah, those
art.
Italian oil painters. Yeah.
And at first I just kind of been drawing. I would take a comic book and just draw every page that I could see. But
Would you call yourself basically self-taught, or did you take?
well, I mean, I
classes?
essentially I was self-taught. I was drawing for as long as I can remember. So
Mhm.
drawing-wise, but then, like I said, I was very much into Renaissance artists and painting and stuff like that. So as I was in middle school, a lot of my family urged me to try painting, and then I met a woman who was an artist in the town over, and I started taking drawing and painting lessons from her, and I got into oil painting. That's when I got into all different forms of painting. Mostly, she taught me oil painting, and I did some of that.
You learned technique and style and stuff
Yep,
like that? Mhm.
absolutely. She was well-versed, and she had been doing it her whole life, and she just had a huge body of work, and she taught me a lot. I mean, like I said, I'd been drawing my whole life before that, but she taught me a lot more formal techniques, and then I got into painting. I wanted to focus on art when I was in high school, but my high school wasn't very encouraging of that.
Yes.
So I kind of started focusing on other things, and then when I got into college and I was trying to decide my major after my first year, I just went back to art. Because I'd been taking business classes because I knew I wanted to work for myself and do all that, but I just kept getting pulled back to the art, so I started taking art classes again. And at that point, I was going to school for media production. I was focusing in video production, and so I did a little bit of everything: writing, illustration, even broadcasting stuff, but I was mostly focused in the video production.
And you use all of that in the marketing stuff that you do now as well.
I do a lot of marketing stuff, from graphic design to video to online.
And we'll talk a little bit more in the future about how you have taken all of your experiences and have used it in the teaching that you do as well. But I want to start showing some of your work so we can get an idea.
I've done video and film production stuff for about 10 years now on top of my normal art. So, I do a lot helping people with video production, everything from music videos to commercials to live event productions. I've done a lot of that over the years. I'm just showing this piece first because this is one of my oldest ones. I actually did this one when I was still in college, and it just kind of haunts me because everybody likes it.
Was that with markers originally?
This is with grayscale markers and black ink pen.
Yep.
This is The Truth, aka Paul Pierce.
Okay.
That's what they call it.
You're outside of my frame of reference.
I know,
I'll take your
I know
word.
you don't know that one. Anyway, this one actually was a large piece. It was probably the size of this counter.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's just grayscale marker and black ink pen.
Now, how I know you is through a lot of our discussions about different authors and concepts and things like that. So I know you're a big
Stuff like
fan of
this.
science fiction, and well, who is that? That's Nicola Tesla, right?
Yeah, somebody who comes up in our conversations even when we're not talking about him.
Right, I know. I mean, tell us a little bit about your experiences with that.
I mean, I'm just very much a student for life. You know, I'm always getting into history and science, and I do a lot of reading. I listen to a lot of interviews. And, you know, people like this come up a lot if you really know your history and you are into science.
Well, he's had a fascinating story because he's kind of in a perfect storm of business and science. I mean, he came up with all of these great concepts that ultimately were stolen, not only by
Yes.
his contemporaries, but ultimately by governments. I mean, his ideas
Who
are
knows? We don't know because they stole them. So
there's
quite
yeah,
notorious.
absolutely.
Another piece I know you like, because this one I actually did at one of the drawing events.
Right.
Or maybe it was one of the art fairs. I think I was just sitting there all day working on this piece while I was selling art and talking to people.
No, that's from the Stanley Kubrick film A Clockwork Orange.
Yes.
And the character Alex, played by Malcolm McDowell, who's undergoing, let's be nice and call it politely, behavior modification through the Ludovico technique. So again,
This is how it used to look before cell phones.
yes, and he's experiencing an indoctrination and a little bit of mind control by way of the government in order to curb his criminal impulses and instincts, and teaching him
Yes.
the polite way, the way to go about society. Again, themes that have been really prevalent a lot lately.
I mean, that was a film that inspired me when I was younger, not just because of the film, but also I read the book.
Yes.
And that was one of my favorite books when I was in high school. And you know my love of Stanley and all of his films and some of the...
Now, Stanley Kubrick as
Yes.
opposed to Stan Lee.
Yes.
Yes.
Stanley Kubrick.
Right.
All of his films and his attention to detail and just the way that he worked and his whole life.
His incredible focus and meticulous.
Definitely,
yes.
yeah, it was an inspiration to me when I was younger.
Now, let's get some more stuff moving because
All right,
we're
what do we
already
got?
getting into time here.
This is another piece that I may or may not have done at one of your shows.
Nope, that's the Richard Pryor.
Richard Pryor.
Outsider comedian.
Yeah, there was a while where I was collecting all of his stand-up on vinyl records, so I have like a full collection of those.
Mm-hmm.
This is an owl
Okay.
that I did from a photo of a camouflage owl. I thought it was pretty cool because in the photograph you could barely see him. This is something I definitely did at one of the shows.
Oh, what's the story behind that?
I have no idea what originally inspired it. This is kind of like a Western take on Pan.
Okay, I can see that. That's like, you know, it reminds me of popular representations of the devil, and that's kind of how we have adapted the old pagan religions and interpreted the visualization as something completely different than what it was originally supposed to be.
Yeah, I'm not sure what I was really trying to do with this one. That was a while ago.
You have some pretty incredible portraits there. I remember you did a portrait of one of the interns, and there's even one.
Some of these I actually did
Oh yeah.
with you.
That's one of my interns on the upper left. That's me
Yes.
on the upper right, and then that's me on the lower
That was
left.
some portrait I did of you on my phone when I first got my
Oh, I
phone
wondered
with the
about
drawing
that,
app, and
yes.
I was testing it out, and I did some sort of exercise to draw you.
And then that one on the bottom that's exactly how I feel a lot
the
of the
time
time.
that I caught you drawing me secretly, and then I took my sketchbook out and I sketched you while you were sketching me,
Yes.
and I think I won.
You did win because mine came out like either a homeless person or
I
a
don't even
Renaissance
remember which one
saint.
that was.
Now, I remember you did the ventriloquist dummy there.
That
or was
a
that's Frank
night
Sinatra,
where
wasn't it?
I think it was a late Halloween night, and we were all drawing renditions of Frankenstein,
Oh
I
yeah,
believe.
Yep.
And that was like part Frank Sinatra, part Frankenstein, part the dummy from Twilight Zone. So
I could
I'm not
see
sure
all of
why
that
I
there.
I'm not sure why I went that route, but
Yeah.
it's one of those late nights.
I remember you working on those stripes at about 2:00 in the morning.
You know, that's the part I remember the most. Those stripes just haunting me.
Yes.
Again, the late night, but
It looks
this
like
piece
a.
here is actually Scratchboard.
Oh right, I
That's
forgot
rainbow
about that.
Scratchboard.
Yep.
And I scratched,
Now
away
you
the
might want to
black.
explain what Scratchboard is.
Yeah, Scratchboard, it's like a lottery ticket. You got the rainbow underneath and the black on top, and you just scratch it away.
You scratch the black away, and when
Yeah,
you.
I mean, there's all different colors. I've done a bunch of different pieces, a lot of black and white ones, but I kind of like the rainbow one just because you don't know what's underneath when you're scratching it, so it's a surprise, and it comes out.
right, because
pretty cool.
you have no idea what the pattern is going to
Yeah.
be when you scratch it
I
away.
mean, the black and white is still fun, but I don't know. I got into the rainbow Scratchboard for a while. It's a lot of fun.
Mhm.
And it's not very forgiving, which is another reason I like it. Because a lot of these I do just straight ink pen. I don't sketch anything out.
Now, as one of the mentors to us all, Bob Ross used to say, there are no.
Yeah, I mean, I was very much
Mistakes.
inspired by, Bob Ross. I used to watch him, and, there were no mistakes. And I
Right,
watch
only-
people like
only
Ralph
happy
Steadman
accidents.
just draw a whole drawing
Yep.
and, just go with the flow.
Now, one of
I don't sketch anything
one of
out
your
anymore.
latest ventures has been into the realm of pet portraiture, right?
Yes. So a lot of other things I do. I do human portraits too for people, commissions, but I do pet portraiture.
And I see the
As
rainbow
you can see,
Scratchboard again.
yeah. This one's one of my favorites just because I was trying to go simple with it, and that was one of the first times I did the rainbow Scratchboard. Like I said, it's a lot of fun.
Now, we also want to point out that you're actually working with kids and interfacing kids with art and technology.
Yeah, I teach art and technology to kids, everything from traditional art, drawing, painting, illustration, to coding and programming, doing animations.
And you use you work a lot with Scratch, right? Which is a,
Yeah, Scratch is a program that a lot of the schools now, it's done out of MIT, and it's kind of just a streamlined coding language to make it easier and more accessible to children and everybody. But a lot of the schools do it now, so I do a lot of stuff in and out of the schools, mostly in the schools now, teaching art and technology, and we've kind of focused on Scratch, and the kids learn how to make everything from games to their own cartoons to, full-blown animated films.
so you're putting the A back into STEAM from STEM, right?
I'm trying.
Education. Well, that kind of runs us out of time. I really want to thank you for coming by.
Absolutely,
and
Wayne.
great to talk to you.
Anytime, always a pleasure.
And that's it for another episode of Art Matters, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
The natives are restless, they vanish in the spear injections. Their primitive chants are thinly disguised as national anthems. Things are getting slightly less than British in the towns. Soon it will be time to stop the